What's good, everyone? I'm Zayas, and today I'm back with a review of Yotsuba by Kiyohiko Azuma. If you have read manga or been online for any period of time by now, you would have most likely seen this little girl Yotsuba, who is part of what has become one of the best and most well-regarded slice-of-life manga of all time. And if you know anything about its author Azuma, prior to this, you would have known he had written azumanga daioh, which again was considered one of the best 4-koma works of all time, and has become one of the most memed series on the internet. I'm in fact in part making this review because Osaka, the legendary Osaka from Azumanga Daioh, has shown up in the latest chapter of Yotsuba. Now, we don't really know what this means. Does this mean canonically this is all happening in the same universe? Will the other characters show up? Will a flying cat come out of nowhere? We don't know, but everything is on the table as of now. The cat has already made an appearance in Yotsuba, so maybe he won't show up again. But in terms of comedy, Azumanga Daioh was super ahead of its time, with tons of funny jokes like when Chiyo goes up to this dude who's like 6 years older than her and tells him that she's his senior, or like when that athletic tall girl keeps going up to cats and there's like this whole cat gang war, or literally any scene with Osaka in it. There's just tons of funny jokes, or the teachers too. And the art and timing in this manga was spectacular as well. The timing of the jokes and the delivery was always on point. The characters were super emotive and expressive, which really helped push the comedy elements that happen in this series, and it was just funny all around. It has a large, lovable cast, a great ending, and just tons of things to like about it. But I would still say it's not quite on Yotsuba's level, even though it is very, very good. Aside from these works, Azuma hasn't done too much in the manga space. He put out a work called Wallaby, which its humor just kind of paled in comparison to works like Yotsuba and Azumanga Daioh. And he also did a pilot for Yotsuba called Try Try Try, which was interesting because we do see one-shots in the manga universe, but we don't really see pilots. But like you would expect, it's just a really rough draft of Yotsuba, so it's more of just like interesting to see where it came from than it is to actually read it and be entertained. He made a parody manga, which I didn't read and won't get into, but past 2003, basically all he's worked on is Yotsuba besides the short anniversary Azumanga Daioh thing, and it's pretty surprising because it's been like 20 something years and he has about 114 chapters of Yotsuba. Past like 2011, his output slowed down considerably. I don't know if he's taking more time to focus on the art, the quality, or if he's just playing too much Uma Musume like I read him saying he was in an interview. I don't really know what's the case. Now on to Yotsuba. I'll start with Yotsuba's story. A lot of people might say Yotsuba has no story. Yotsuba has a very minimalist story, and it came out in a time period where in the 80s and the 90s is when works finally started to have long-term stories. Before that, in the 80s even, a lot of works would just kind of had each chapter be a complete total reset from the previous one, and that's kind of how manga started. But when it comes to Yotsuba, there is a long-term story, and if you read it in order, you will notice there is progression, but at the same time, there's a lot of resetting, kind of like in a lot of slice of life works, and especially in the earlier late 90s, 2000s slice of life works, there really wasn't a long-term story trying to be told. And Yotsuba is kind of trying to deliver these moments of time, of happiness, of comedy, of emotions. Yotsuba did come out in the early 2000s, so it's one of the first slice of life works to kind of have a long-term story. And that story is centered around Yotsuba, this 5-year-old kid who moved across the world from we don't know where with their dad to enjoy everyday life, to make friends, to explore, to just have a lot of experiences. When I say it like this, it doesn't sound as entertaining as me saying something like Solo Leveling is about Sungjin Woo aura farming, but Yotsuba manages to make these mundane sounding events into something entertaining and engaging through these characters' personalities, through the funny jokes, and through these childish motives that Yotsuba kind of has. The day-to-day adventures of Yotsuba are always enjoyable and pleasant, whether it's experiencing Yotsuba cooking pancakes for the first time, arguing with Yamda, or taking the bus for the first time. Yotsuba does sort of fall into the Iyashikei genre, so it's kind of trying to make these calming, nurturing, really emotional slice of life moments, but at the same time, it's also incorporating comedy in there. And unlike Azumanga Daioh, not every single scene is meant to be a comedic scene. There are tons of scenes just in here for the purpose of developing characters or just being a very relaxing, peaceful scene. There are lots of plot points in Yotsuba left intentionally vague. Things like where Yotsuba came from, what her nationality she's from, why Kawai took her in, who is Kawhi, like what's his life like, what are his siblings, his relationships, and tons of other things. I think this is for two reasons. One is that Yotsuba is sort of being shielded from the outside world about things that would hurt her, maybe about her parents, maybe about other things by her dad. And in some ways, we're sort of sharing Yotsuba's perspective in how she's growing up. And the other and more important thing this manga is trying to say is, does it really matter why Yotsuba was adopted, what Kawai's past was like, what his relationships were like, if these two are just living in the moment, enjoying themselves and creating great memories? And if these guys are able to do that, then everything's all good. And it also just might be that Azuma is trying to leave things open so he can address it later, which I don't even know if he's going to address, but it's a possibility. I'd say story-wise, this manga does exactly what it needs to do, and it leaves this very open to these characters and these jokes to really shine through. Speaking of characters, Yotsuba is a great character who's this energetic, brash, outgoing, ever-curious 5-year-old whose tendencies to do dumb things and just go out exploring just kind of define what the series is really like. A lot of comedic moments in the series revolve around her limited worldview and us kind of seeing the world through her eyes. Her childish ways are what make Yotsuba Yotsuba, and it's incredible how Azuma managed to make her seem so much like a real 5-year-old, whether it's her going around collecting rocks, learning to ride a bike, or playing make-believe with frogs. Not only are these moments cute and wholesome, they're also rife with comedy, which is further enhanced because Yotsuba is so expressive and emotive. Like I said earlier, she is probably one of the most expressive manga characters ever created. And other characters don't lack in the comedic department as well. There are other moments where characters are super expressive, like Fuka being embarrassed about virtually everything, or Fuka's mom just being only interested in food whenever anything happens, and she gets super upset whenever she doesn't get to eat food. Yotsuba's dumb, enthusiastic energy is infectious, and it's super funny to watch. Like, for example, when she lights these fireworks on cars and she's super innocent and unaware about what's happening, but it's just so funny. Yotsuba's dad is a little more introverted. He spends a lot of his time lazing around or just working, but Yotsuba undoubtedly brings a lot of joy and happiness into her father's life. And for someone as plain and tired as he is all the time, he does have funny moments as well, like when he randomly becomes Pants Man and it's revealed that he does this very often. There are other ways you could interpret his character. You could say he's like kind of a representation of people in Japan, overworked, stressed, maybe just like a little depressed even, but I think that's all a little bit of a stretch. If there is one character in this series I wish had a little more personality, it would be him, but I don't think he's a bad character by any means, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with him and Yotsuba creating these great moments. And let me just mention, characters are also super versatile. They can go from having these high energy moments to low energy moments. They can go from being happy, sad, whatever emotion. There's a really wide range of what characters are able to do in this work. There's funny moments too. Fuka, for example, she has a lot of funny moments where people joke about her weight, not being as pretty as her sister, maybe joke about her failed relationships, where she, not even a relationship, failed attempt, failed crush, basically. But Fuka is a funny character, but she can also be a very straight edge character who's just kind of reacting to these jokes. Anna is hilariously the most mature and sensible character in this work, despite being a literal elementary school student, which is pretty funny. And she's also very sensitive about other people's emotions. Like Yotsuba, when she believed this box robot was dead. I love Jumbo too. He was this character who's normally very calm and respectful, except when Asagi's around, then he has a total nervous meltdown most times. And sometimes he just likes to mess with these kids for fun, which also is pretty funny. Yanda is one of the most heinous and well-written villains in manga history. He makes Griffith from Berserk look like a good guy. This guy is deceiving, deceitful, deplorable. He's a lying, conniving punk, ice cream stealing punk of a character. In all seriousness, he is very funny. I actually liked him quite a bit. and him just constantly trolling Yotsuba and all these other children is pretty funny. In a lot of ways, he embodies this like broke student who's coming over to this guy's house just for hot water, maybe a little bit of companionship too, but he's pretty relatable. I feel like I would also troll children the way he does, and I do sometimes. So I kind of relate to him. Sagi's a character who you initially think is very pretty, but you quickly learn that she's a very mischievous character who likes to prank people, steal people's foods, do all these things. And her relationship with both her mother and Yotsuba is generally pretty hilarious. Even with Jumbo and other male characters, she has great scenes as well, just because of how nervous they get around her. There's other characters too that I won't get too deep into, but there's characters like Asagi's mom, there's Toriko, there's Enna's friend Miura, there's the cardboard robot that Miura becomes, there's Kawai's sister. There's just so many characters. What all these characters share is that they have depth. They have lots of different sides to them, and they have subtle different dynamics with different characters depending on what's going on. We get to see them in so many different situations, which is in part what makes the work funny, first of all, and also what makes these characters great and kind of developed. Art is where I think some people might underestimate Yotsuba a little bit, because the attention to detail, the beautiful spreads, and these crazy environments do improve as the work goes on. But I would argue what's more important than these crazy spreads art-wise is these characters' designs, the expressions on these characters, the delivery of these jokes through the art, and also the timing of these jokes and how they're placed in the panels. Also the expressions on the characters. The character design here is obviously iconic, with Yotsuba herself being one of the most widespread and instantly recognizable manga characters. The simple yet cute design, the unique haircut, and her eyes, which kind of depict how little intelligence she can have at times, all contribute to her immense popularity. Again, her dad is a little plain in the design department, but characters like Jumbo, Uka, Asagi, and Enna are a vast and diverse range of characters, ranging from mature to mischievous, from serious to very unserious. It's hard to say what Azuma does in particular to make his design stand out. I'd say the one or two things that he does on every design is to give each character some unique characteristic, like Jumbo being big, for example, Asagi being pretty or whatever. And the other thing he does is really focus on the eyes. He really makes sure that the eyes of all these characters are done very well in every panel, and you can really tell the emotion that these guys are going through. Like I said, expressions were very important in azumanga daioh, and they are still super important here. From shock, fear, concern, excitement, enthusiasm, disgust, Azuma portrays the emotions in a way here that enhances the comedy like tenfold. The expressions are never over-exaggerated or under-exaggerated. They always fit perfectly to every scenario, and there's such a wide range of scenarios that you see so many different emotions. And the timing on these jokes is great as well. A lot of manga really overcrowd their jokes to the point where it's no longer funny, or some series undercrowd the jokes to the point where there's nothing funny going on most times. But Yotsuba manages to deliver a joke every 1 to 3 chapters, sometimes calling back to previous references, and I think all in all it delivers these jokes effortlessly and perfectly timed every single time. And Yotsuba's backgrounds, environments, improving as time goes on, to me is sort of a cherry on top rather than a core part of what makes Yotsuba good. It's difficult to attribute the success of Yotsuba to any one thing, but in retrospect, it was a great idea to center your series around this enthusiastic 5-year-old who's a little dumb, but super energetic. Comedy is something I've touched on quite a bit, but I'll talk about it just by itself for a little. I think the comedy is impeccable. Not only does Yotsuba create comedic moments, every single character managed to have these funny moments through, of course, emotions, the funny jokes, which are always very varied, and the timing. At worst, the jokes were a little less funny than the rest, and at best, they had me actively chuckling, which is pretty rare. Her innocence combined with all these unexpected sort of moments, like, for example, when Yotsuba goes around pretending to kill people with water guns and they all play along, and kind of the absurdity of this whole situation is what makes Yotsuba funny. Now, even though I've said all this, I do think it is hard to describe comedy. So I've described it to the best of my abilities, but if you really want to experience Yotsuba, go read it, and you will know that it is funny. Slice of life elements were kind of icing on the cake to me. There were some moving scenes, like, for example, the scene where he finally puts a backpack on Yotsuba. I thought that was wholesome. That was a great scene. But most of the time, they're kind of chill scenes where you just are like, damn, that's cool. But it's not really like the core of what makes a series great. Even without these, Yotsuba is an incredible, incredible work. It's gonna be hard to find another series as good as Yotsuba in the future, especially in the same vein. I think it's easily a top 5 slice of life work of all time, and there's probably a pretty good argument for it at like 1, 2, or 3. I'm feeling a 10, baby, let's go. Thank you everyone for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, anything to do about manga. I will get back to them all. The next review is about horses. You guys know what I'm talking about. And then also, I know I said I was going to upload consistently, and that hasn't happened. I'm sorry. But there was a lot of situations going on in my life, and I just couldn't make time. Well, 1, I couldn't make time, and 2, I couldn't record. So now there is more of an opportunity for me to record. So hopefully things will be faster, no guarantees. I think I can promise you maybe 1 review every 2 weeks, which again, I hopefully will follow through on that, but I have no idea. And now there's no schedule anymore. Saturdays are done. So I'm sorry. Maybe the next one I'll upload Saturday if I can possibly do that. But yeah, horses, there is a big thing coming up, so I'm going to review that. And thank you.